Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Let me begin by thanking the worthy guests on the stage, Arno Kershaw, Mr. Samuel Riz, Professor Jamil Chitrali Saab, Rakshan Danaz, my old colleague, and Madam Amna Durrani, and all the worthy participants. It has indeed been an honor for me to have participated in this seminar, in this gathering, since the objective of this exercise that you undertook over the last 2 weeks has been focused on peace resolution, conflict resolution, which is, I believe, an issue of fundamental importance, keeping in view the geopolitical and the geostrategic dynamics of this region, in particular the province of Khyber Pakhtunkhwa. As the lady from Balochistan also highlighted issues confronting that region, I'm sure that Pakistan and in Pakistan, insofar as Balochistan and KB are concerned, both regions are going through a certain paradigm shifts in their societies, in their political and in their administrative spheres of life, in the sense that the conflict that exists there in Balochistan and also in this region has impacted almost everybody in this region, beginning from our individual experiences with the ramifications and the consequences of conflict. It has kind of transgressed into not just our national life, but also has influenced and impacted the overall regional dynamics of this particular area, be that Afghanistan, Pakistan, our conflict with India or Kashmir, and also to some extent the impact and the effects and the consequences of the conflict that the region recently experienced in the recent past between Iran and Israel. All these have a cumulative effect on, of course, the individual as well as collective life of everybody living in, at least in this part of the globe. Since the title of this workshop or this training course is basically Insider Mediation for Conflict Resolution, so I would like to just express my thoughts on the dynamics and the dimensions, the various dimensions of conflict mechanisms, conflict resolution mechanisms. I'll try to confine myself, although I haven't got a prepared speech, because I was told that I have to come and deliver my speech here in this gathering, and whatever I have heard from the participants or the speakers who spoke before me, I've just kind of composed a series of wild ideas, so I'll be just putting them before you on this very subject. I believe that when we talk about disputes, I'm sure that it has in my understanding, insofar as the ontological and the epistemological concepts of dispute and settlement are concerned, and conflict are concerned, I believe they are a little apart from each other, in the sense that we have disputes everywhere. Human society has a characteristic and a distinguishing feature that it has conflict. It has lived through conflicts and disputes, I think, since the origin of humanity and since the origin of recorded history. We have millions of examples of conflicts. Why did they occur? Why did they reach a certain stage? And how were they resolved? I think that when we talk about issues within our society, they should be called disputes rather than conflicts. Because when you are confronted with a difference of opinion, or a clash of some kind of interests in a society where the system is intact, where the governance system, judicial system is intact and it's functional, then you have a mechanism available for adjudication of that dispute or that clash of interests. There are courts, there are ADR mechanisms, alternate dispute resolution mechanisms, and they are probably quite competent to handle those issues and sort them out and settle them. When we refer to the term conflict, I understand it as something or a clash of interests at a mega level between countries, nations, or I must say, if we go into it, like for example, either it's an ethnic conflict between two ethnic groups, or it's a religious conflict between religious groups, or sectarian conflicts between two sectarian groups. So therefore, it has a comparatively higher dimension to a normal dispute. And my understanding is that whenever there is a disruption of the ordinary administrative and judicial mechanisms in a state, whenever there is a dysfunctional government, whenever there is a systemic disorder in a state, in a government, it is a situation which gives rise to conflicts. And then in that kind of a conflict, mediation does play a role, but it has to be, as mentioned here, at a macro level rather than a micro or a meso level. Insofar as your training is concerned, since I'm not privy to and I do not have the information as to what you were told and what you were taught and what kind of experiences do you get. But my understanding of dispute conflict resolution is that since it has social and political dimensions, therefore, the mechanism that you must put in place to address that must have the capacity to resolve conflicts that gave rise to those disputes, to those conflicts. For instance, jirga would be one of the mechanisms, appropriate mechanism for resolving a dispute in a Pashtun culture. But jirga is a best mechanism, or is a far more effective mechanism in a tribal setting. This is how my understanding goes. If the tribal society has its traditions and its norms, and they are strong, the tribal institutions are intact, they are functional, then it is, of course, a logical methodology to approach addressing those issues through a jirga. However, if that mechanism is on the path of erosion, if it is getting dysfunctional, then I personally believe that a jirga would not be able to play its role as effectively as any other mechanism would. Now, in the context of my region, Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, the recent conflicts that we have experienced, our colleague from Tira mentioned, from Khyber Agency mentioned the issue in Tira. We have an issue in Bajawar. We have issues in Miransha, in North and South Waziristan. These issues have a certain historical and political features. The problem is that when we try to address these issues through jirga mechanisms, and this is my experience having taken part in jirgas across the border in Afghanistan, as well as here in our local disputes, especially in the tribal, in the merged districts, in the ongoing war against insurgency. My experience is that we need a collective mechanism of jirga, but to the extent of identifying the core issues and to the extent of handling those core issues through mediation. But a mediation will only be successful and effective if it is supported by either the power of the state or through some kind of administrative mechanism. I was involved in negotiations with one of the insurgent groups in Afghanistan. Afghan government at that time and the Pakistani state was willing to engage in dialogue with them. But that dialogue failed because during the course of dialogue and after some time, both the parties lost interest. Not because they were not interested in peace, but because the geopolitical dynamics of the region changed. Interests of both states changed. And when you have diversified interests, then it doesn't matter how sincere you are to accomplish peace and to handle issues, it is bound to fail. The presence of powerful factors and of strong actors like state is a prime example in conflict resolution in areas like, for example, I would like to mention the Bosnian conflict. There was a civil war in Bosnia. It was an ethnic as well as a religious war. But it only got settled when NATO forces intervened on behalf of the Muslims in Kosovo. And before that, when United Nations intervened and the dynamics of power were actually evolved in such a way that it created a balance between the opposing forces. In Bosnia, Muslims were being massacred, Croats were massacred, and Serbs always claimed that they have been the victims of violence. All of them had grievances, but there was nobody to mediate. A war only stopped when all the parties to the conflict reached a situation where a stalemate occurred. It is in political science called the ripeness theory, that you escalate a conflict to such a level where all the parties realize that they can no longer fight and they cannot resolve their dispute or win against their opponent by sheer use of force. It was that situation which brought a kind of settlement in that dispute. And then United Nations got involved, and then the Kosovo crisis, when it emerged, the NATO forces got involved. They took action against the Serbian government, and we accomplished peace. Similarly, in all these situations, my understanding is that the role of political power cannot be undermined and cannot be ignored. It has to be there to back up a settled dispute. Even in the United Nations Charter, in Chapter 7, where there is a whole chapter devoted to peaceful settlement of disputes, it does refer it to the Security Council if in case one of the parties failed to abide by that, by an understanding, and when the use of force becomes necessary. So my point is, I'm trying to come to this situation I'm trying to highlight a scenario where at a minor level and at a micro and meso level, yes, disputes can be resolved through negotiations, but negotiations only take or can accomplish a certain level of peace. However, in order to ensure that, you again need a mechanism, you again need a legal, judicial, and political administrative mechanism to make sure that the settlement remains intact. Otherwise, any party is at liberty to withdraw itself and to start firing bullets again. Conflict transformation is an approach, in my opinion, where an attempt is made to transform the dynamics of conflict. I think it is an important area that all the institutions, people involved in peaceful resolution of a conflict or peaceful mediation of a conflict at a lower level must address. In that, according to this approach, you transform the paradigm of factors which are causing or which are the root cause of that conflict. You transform them from a conflicting situation to a peaceful situation. Now, Of course, it's a theoretical framework. I would not go into the details because it has a lot of details are required to explain it, and this is not the forum for that. But it is one of the approach, and we are trying to, in Pakistan, especially in the insurgency that is actually going on in our region, Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, in the merged districts, an attempt is made to transform the dynamics of conflict from this particular set of issues to a different set of issues. Now, in that respect, my understanding is that the paradigm of power and the paradigm of interest approach is also important. You identify the solution, the mechanisms for resolving a dispute through using either approaches of power, like a state uses against an insurgent group. The best option is, or like countries use against other countries. I can give examples of many international wars in which two nations or a group of nations try to settle their disputes with another through wars. As it is said in international relations that war is a way of a methodology of relationship, of engaging in a relationship with other countries. But when it comes to reducing the quantum of conflict and promoting peace, I believe the interest paradigm must come into play, and it must be made functional in the sense that you identify interests of both groups, the warring groups, try to promote those interests, transform your approach from settling a dispute by force to settling a dispute by promoting their interests. And for example, like European nations, after experiencing the bitter experience of World War II and I, they realized that wars are not going to make any difference in our life nor settle our disputes. So they went into economic sphere. The paradigm was shifted from war to an interest paradigm, and economic interests were promoted. And through that promotion, now we have EU. Fortunately, there are no wars, there are disputes, but there are no serious conflicts in Europe. I just give that as an example. There have been attempts in other regions, like in South America. You have the Organization of American States. In Africa, you have the African Unity. But I would not be very satisfied with the performance of those, because there are still conflicts and they have been unable to resolve those disputes. But Europe has. So we can resolve our disputes through these application of these strategies. However, I believe that our region has its own dynamics. We have national issues, we have ethnic issues, we have sectarian issues, we have religious issues. But your training is, I'm sure that it would go a long way in resolving the disputes, in resolving the, or at least lowering the tensions that you feel in the society, and which ultimately lead to, which are the root cause of the problems, and then they ultimately lead to conflicts. Exercises like this, they are very important. We need trained people, we need peace builders, we need social actors in this area to play their role. Because looking to the government and expecting the government to perform miracles in a situation where the government is itself confronted with numerous problems, governance problems, administration problems, I think that it is pivotal, it's important, it's fundamental that the civil society groups play their role. And I'm very, in a way, hopeful that whatever you have learned from here will go a long way in ensuring peace and conflict resolution in your countries, in your regions. In Balochistan especially, the dynamics of conflict there are completely different from the dynamics of conflict here. You have a sub-nationalist problem to some extent, aggravated by economic issues and maybe some political issues as well, and also the kind of social fabric that you have. I believe that it has crumbled down to a level where it is unable to resolve the local disputes at the local level. So they have escalated, they have magnified in their context, and now they are threatening the fabric of the whole nation. Similarly, in KP, we have geopolitical disputes, and I'm sure that the gentlemen or the experts and the ladies from Khyber agency will also contribute in their areas and in resolving conflicts. I congratulate once again the UNDP, the German government. I'm using the term German government because the government is a representative of its citizens, so let me make it simple. And also all the participants as well as, but my special thanks goes to Dr. Jamil Chitrali Saab and his team for organizing this workshop, for taking their time, and for accomplishing this task with such dedication, commitment, and zeal. Thank you very much. Thank you.